As part of the 39th International Business Information Management Association Conference, on behalf of the research team, I would like to present the results of preliminary research on digital infrastructure of secondary schools on the example of Poland. My name is Małgorzata ZAKRZEWSKA, and together with Małgorzata KOSAŁA and Aleksandra BORKOWSKA, we represent the Krakow University of Economics. Our study was conducted as a part of the project that has been financed by the Ministry of Science and Higher Education within the Regional Initiative of Excellence program. During my presentation, I will present the results of the literature studies and empirical research. Social, organizational, and technological changes in the conditions of digitization and globalization are the inherent element of modern education and the education system at every level. Experience from the COVID-19 pandemic has shown that adapting the education system to distance learning is a problem, even in conditions of advanced technological development. Remote learning is a challenge both for school principals and teachers, but above all for students. These challenges concern inter alia school equipment, information technology tools and technologies, and digital competences. In the context of challenges for education with the use of information technologies, there is still a research gap that may result from the dynamic technological development and changing organizational conditions. Scopus database, as one of the largest scientific databases in the world, showed only 148 documents as a search result for remote education and challenges keywords. It should be emphasized that the vast majority of these documents were published in 2020 and 2021, which means that it was only the COVID-19 pandemic that sparked considerable interest in the subject of challenges in remote education. According to the literature research, there are numerous studies concentrated on experiences and challenges of distance learning due to the COVID-19. A large part of published papers in the context of COVID-19 concern the challenges facing higher education. The bibliographic analysis shows that in the context of the challenges for remote education, a significant increase in scientific publications was observed in 2020 and 2021. It means it is a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Interestingly, most of the works come from Brazil, the United States, and Australia. Slightly fewer studies were carried out in Spain, China, UK, and Italy. When it comes to the subject areas in which research results were published in the context of challenges related to distance education, social sciences, and computer sciences dominate. Some work has focused on specific areas, such as engineering and medicine. Moreover, remote education is studied in the context of health sciences, psychology, and the environment. This means that the topic is very important from the point of view of each discipline and different actors of the education system. We also made a detailed analysis of scientific publications regarding the digital infrastructure of secondary schools. In the Scopus database, we managed to find only 4 articles in this topic. Schneider and others presented initial results of the study on how children are spending their time during the lockdown, with a focus on home learning activities and the home learning resources available in different families during COVID-19. Molina Perez and Pulido Montes has aimed to understand how educators experience the transformation from face-to-face learning to online learning as a consequence of COVID-19 and its professional and educational implications. Blickstadt-Ballas and Klette dealt with the methodological and empirical gaps by examining the access to information and communication technologies and integration between teaching and digital technology. The oldest article by Parsons and Atikari presented the results of survey conducted among teachers, parents, and students in the context of bringing own devices to secondary school. To find more about general conclusions and practical and research implications, we encourage you to read our short paper that will be available in the proceedings of the conference. The results of empirical research presented in the paper concern the assessment of digital infrastructure on the example of Polish secondary schools and the assessment of students' approach to the development of digitization and its impact on the economy. Data was collected at the turn of 2019 and 2021 using survey questionnaires. The survey respondents were secondary school students of all profiles and types of schools, general secondary school and technical secondary schools, from the Małopolska region in Poland. The study was conducted during the classes for high school students as part of the Małopolska Educational Cloud Program, the purpose of which was to popularize remote forms of education. A group of 311 students from different schools located in various regions of Poland was asked to answer the questionnaire. As a consequence, 307 valid answers were collected. The group of respondents consisted mainly of people between 15 to 18 years old. They represented two types of schools that are typical for Polish students in the age: technical secondary school and general secondary school. On the figure presented on the slide, you can see that the majority of questioned people was from technical secondary schools. It was 56%, whereas the rest presented secondary schools. In order to evaluate the digital infrastructure, especially computers and Wi-Fi access, present in Polish school students were asked two questions. First of them was about access to computers at schools. The second question was about access to Wi-Fi at school. The answers are presented on the figure on the slide. The situation in technical secondary schools is satisfying. The majority of students has access to both Wi-Fi and computers. Only 28% of people answered that there is no Wi-Fi at school and 25% answered there is no access to computers. The situation in general secondary school is different. The majority of people said they have no access to Wi-Fi. Moreover, 33% has no access to computers. There are also many people unsure about access to the computers, which means that this type of equipment may not be used very often by students. Thus, it can be observed a gap between general secondary schools and technical secondary schools. To sum up, the digital infrastructure of secondary schools is a very important element of the education and distance learning system. Learning in the conditions of technological development and Revolution 4.0 is a challenge both for students and their parents, but also for schools, teachers, and the education system. An attempt to analyze the literature on the assessment of digital infrastructure in secondary schools has shown that there is still a lot to be explored in this respect. The main conclusions of the research carried out give implications that could support the online education system. However, the authors of the paper emphasize the need to conduct further research in this area and to propose solutions that simplify a distance learning for students as an introduction to student and professional life in the conditions of a dynamically changing environment. Of course, we recommend conducting further research and verification on the level of digital infrastructure in other regions of the country and abroad, in order to propose solutions in the future to improve the conditions of distance learning. Now you can see the list of references. We suggest to get to know with the studies. In case of any further questions or research cooperation, you can contact us via email. Thank you very much for your attention.